Well, as the Supreme Court enters its October session, we're already seeing some important decisions being made and some slated to be made soon. ABC's Kevin Dwyer says that they've already handed down a decision denying the appeal of convicted sex offender and partner of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell.
She had asked the justices to look at her conviction, her prosecution. She alleged that a non-prosecution agreement made with Jeffrey Epstein before his death should have applied to her, that she shouldn't have been prosecuted as well. But the justices declined to take up her appeal. They did not explain themselves, but a statement from Maxwell's attorney tells us that they are disappointed in the Supreme Court's decision, but they are going to be looking for other avenues to ensure, in their words, justice is done.
The justices are also slated to look at things like the extent of presidential power.
The court will decide whether Trump can fire members of independent federal agencies for any reason, despite 90 years of precedent saying he can't, and whether that authority extends to the Federal Reserve after Trump took unprecedented steps to remove Fed Governor Lisa Cook.
And decisions are also expected around culturally controversial subjects like trans athletes.
With the nation sharply divided, the justices will again wade into the culture wars, deciding this term whether states can ban transgender athletes from school sports and whether state bans on so-called conversion therapy for LGBTQ teens violates a counselor's free speech.
We have with us on the line this morning SCOTUS blog managing editor Kelsey Dallas. And Kelsey, we haven't talked about the big one yet, which I think is the one everybody's waiting to hear about, and that is this idea of looking and changing birthright citizenship. Is that on the docket as well?
Not yet. The Trump administration has asked the court to review the case, and most court watchers expect the justice to agree to that review. But that has not officially been conferenced yet, and oral arguments, should the case be taken up, likely wouldn't be until February or March.
Okay, so what are some of the cases that we're really looking at closely? Because that's one that I thought was at the top of the list.
Yes, definitely fair to say that if and when the court takes it up, birthright citizenship will be one of the blockbuster decisions of the 2025-26 term. Other top issues just this month are about Colorado's ban on, quote, conversion therapy, a type of counseling that addresses patients' gender identity or sexual orientation. And then also the court is hearing more arguments on the issue of congressional redistricting in Louisiana and could potentially adjust the application of the Voting Rights Act. And that has consequences for states across the country that are engaged in redistricting right now.
I'm so curious, as you look at this sort of the suite of cases and some of the issues that are at the heart of several of them, I'm kind of curious what you're seeing when the court has been increasingly being given questions about expanding presidential authority when it comes to the executive branch. I'm kind of curious how you see that issue playing out in some of these particular cases, because it seems like several of them are connected to these issues surrounding presidential authority.
Absolutely. I would say that has emerged as the theme of the term ahead is the scope of executive power. As listeners maybe already heard, there are a couple of cases set for argument, one about Trump's ability to remove a commissioner on the Federal Trade Commission, and another on Trump's attempt to fire Lisa Cook, a Federal Reserve governor. Both of those cases are sort of looking at the president's ability to fire someone, remove someone from an independent agency. There's the potential that the court will overturn a decision that's nearly 100 years old about when, under what circumstances, the president can make a move like that. But, of course, executive power is not the only issue in front of the court. I actually am very intrigued to see what this term will mean for the Second Amendment, for gun rights. The court just took up a case on Friday out of Hawaii that has to do with limitations on concealed carry permit. And it could also end up taking a case about whether folks who are believed to be habitual drug users are allowed to carry a weapon.
Oh, wow. Whether or not that person could be restricted under the restricted in light of the Second Amendment from carrying a gun. by being a habitual criminal offender. Can you tell us where we are? You mentioned Colorado's redistricting. Are there Colorado's ban on conversion therapy. Are there other states where that issue has come up and that are sort of conversing at the Supreme Court?
I believe that there are multiple states that have very similar bans in place. The case in front of the justices will just deal with the language and applications of Colorado's law. But as is the case whenever they consider one of these policies that has appeared in multiple forms across the country, the court's ruling will likely hold ramifications for every state that has that type of policy in place. What's at issue on this Colorado ban is whether the attempt to interfere with conversion therapy is a restriction on the conduct of counselors, so sort of a straightforward regulation on this medical treatment, or if it's a restriction on free speech, on the ability of counselors to speak with their clients about issues like gender identity and sexual orientation. And if it's thought to be a restriction on speech, then the government in Colorado will have to jump through a higher bar to say, like, yes, we are allowed to make restrictions on this type of conversation.
Well, Kelsey, these are some very substantial cases that are going to have some significant impact. I'm kind of curious, as someone who watches this just so closely, I guess as reading the tea leaves just a little bit too, but what are some of the dynamics that you see right now between the justices? Are there some visible alliances on any of these particular cases you just mentioned? Are there some splits that we might see?
Well, I think we all typically look at the court in this breakdown of Republican appointed versus Democrat appointed, and that would be 6-3 with Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson being thought of as the liberals. And I always just remind people that it's actually very few cases that turn out along that ideological line because there's always these unexpected coalitions that emerge depending on what issue is in front of the court. And the other note is that there are a surprising number of cases that turn out unanimously because the court has looked at the language of a particular statute or an application question and said, wow, we all actually agree on this. So you might automatically go to ideology, liberal versus conservative, but I'll just remind folks that that's usually not the line that turns out to dominate these decisions. We're more often dealing in the realm of unanimous decisions or 8-1 or 7-2.
Kelsey, our own legislature convened today in special session to deal with a redistricting question that came up, and without getting into the weeds too much, it dealt with a ballot initiative and the legislature's attempt to change that and whether or not the citizens or the legislature makes that decision. What can we expect from the Supreme Court in this session as it relates to redistricting questions?
Yeah, their case, Louisiana v. Kelly, is squarely on a question about race with redistricting. So the question was whether it was appropriate for the Louisiana legislature to create a new congressional map that was intentionally creating a second Black majority district, and if that is the appropriate application of the Voting Rights Act. So it could hold ramifications for redistricting, but it shouldn't affect the process that Utah is going through because that wasn't race specific.
No, it was an entirely different question. That was very helpful. That was SCOTUS blog managing editor Kelsey Dallas joining us this morning. Thanks for being with us. It is going to be an interesting session, Jason. You know, and I do think birthright citizenship is going to come up. I mean, she answered that really well, but I think everybody thinks that's the big elephant in the back of the room when the Supremes meet, that eventually they have to address that. Because if you recall, we've had these kind of universal orders or universal decisions that judges have entered saying, well, I'm the judge in Oregon, I'm going to find this, I'm the judge in Illinois, I'm going to find that. And the Supreme Court saying, you know, we need to have you can't just enter these universal orders.
Well, that is such a brilliant observation. It's exactly what's happening. You start piling out these interim orders,
right?
And who can give them, and to what kind of impact does it have outside the state? And so finally, have some of the full merits of the case,
right?
Which I'm looking for. Those kinds of decisions.
And someday that's got to come. Maybe this session.